Okay, why don't we get started? For those of you who don't know, I'm David Wilkins. I'm the faculty director of the Center on the Legal Profession. This is our, not quite every week, but lots of week speaker series in which we try to bring some of the most interesting people either in the legal profession or thinking about the legal profession to campus. And I am absolutely delighted to see so many students here, as well as some of our friends who have been students in the past but are no longer, to come and hear our speaker here today, Matthew Layton. Matthew is the managing partner of Clifford Chance. I have had the great chance of getting to know him. I didn't even know how clever I was. Over the last few years, where he has been a member of the advisory board of the Center on the Legal Profession and a really close friend and confidant, and helping us to really understand the tremendous changes that are happening throughout the legal profession, but in particular in the world of large law firms and in the kind of global corporate legal market generally. As almost all you know, Clifford Chance is one of the largest and most important firms in the world. And what you may not know, but I think Matthew, after listening to him, you will, it's also one of the most innovative on a number of fronts. So we will follow our usual format, which is that Matthew will speak for 15, 20, or 25 minutes, something like that. I think he encourages interruptions even as he is speaking, but that the whole idea is we'll have plenty of time for question and answer afterwards. So please help me welcome Matthew Layton.
David, thank you very much. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. I'd say this is my first visit to the centre itself. We've met in various different locations around the world. It's great to be here today. As David said, what I'm going to do is just canter through a number of slides, just really to give a perspective of how I see the world. It's a very personal perspective from my position as the managing partner of Clifford Chance, also from Clifford Chance's perspective as well. And then obviously very keen to open that up so we can explore some of the areas that you'd like to dive into in a little more detail. So let me start with a little bit of personal history, because I think I always like to understand where people come from, and we all come from our history and our roots. So I joined Clifford Turner, as it then was, in 1983. How I ended up with Clifford Turner was a complete accident. So when I graduated from law school, my vision, my passion was to go into a local law firm in the north of England. This is an advert for where my family come from, which is Swaledale in North Yorkshire in England. We need lots of tourists at the moment to boost the UK economy, so I don't want to put up a good picture there. It's very cheap, sterling is weak, so take advantage of it. And I sort of set my goal in basically joining a firm to do agricultural tenancy law, family law, bit of criminal law in a location such as this. And the picture is not of me, but is of my great-great-grandfather, who was actually a blacksmith in Swaledale many, many years ago, and who was really the patriarch of the family and set the ethos of hard work and passionate commitment to what you do is really how you get enjoyment out of your career, and that was something that passed down, was something my father instilled in me. So how did I end up at Clifford Turner, or Clifford Chance as we now are? Well, two friends of mine who I was at university with said to me, come down to London, have a bit of fun in London, 2 years, you can go back and you can pursue that goal whenever you want to do that. Those two friends are still two of my closest friends. They were lawyers, but they're not lawyers anymore. They've gone off and pursued other careers. And I'm the one who ended up sort of staying in Clifford Chance and joining a global law firm, which couldn't be further away from the vision that I had back in those days. So I joined Clifford Turner, as it then was, in 1983. Shortly after I qualified, the two firms, Clifford Turner and Clifford Chance, undertook what was one of the most transformational law firm mergers, certainly in the UK, European market, and that was 30 years ago. This photograph is of a dinner that we held last month to celebrate the 30th anniversary of that merger. The gentleman holding the microphone was an inspiration to many of us in the firm, Sir Max Williams. Max is now 91, and he stood up and gave a speech with his usual style and dry wit about what drove the merger and how the merger took place. It was conducted in London with briefcases of confidential information being left on the steps of St Paul's and swapped because there were no technology solutions for exchanging information. But I think in many cases, people look back at that merger and see it as probably one of the most successful law firm mergers of all time. What drove the merger was huge change that was happening, particularly in the UK market. It followed shortly after Big Bang, the deregulation of the financial services markets in London. And as Max said in his speech, the principal driver of that was that there was an increasing demand and shortage of finance lawyers in the market to service the requirements of our major financial institution clients, who were suddenly growing at a pace which outpaced the ability to grow within the law firm. So the merger had a very strong driver for it in change. And it was really the vision of Max and the other partners who saw that through that created the firm that we have today at Clifford Chance. I often put this slide up for people because we talk about being in an era of incredible change at the moment. But actually, when you look at this timeline from, I joined just back here, but from the merger in 87, and you look at the events that have happened and shaped the world for law firms, but importantly for our clients over that time, you can just see that we've actually lived through an era of incredible change and uncertainty, including several financial crises to arrive in the environment that we're operating within now. And throughout that phase, we and other law firms have had to adapt to those changes. And our clients have had to adapt to huge changes in their own industries, including the impact of globalization that has taken place across that period. Now, the timeline misses out many other major events, but I just wanted to capture some of the sense of dramatic change that has taken place over that period. So very quickly, this is Clifford Chance today. I'm not going to go through the detail of it. Some of you may be familiar with the firm, but you can see the geographical spread. You can also see where the balance of our business is by reference to the revenues. And obviously our legacy and our history firmly as a European firm, but over the last 5 years, and certainly since in the period that I've been the managing partner for the last 3.5 years, the fastest growing regions for us have been Asia and have been the Americas. And that's looks set to continue as part of our vision and strategy. So as I mentioned, I became our managing partner 3.5 years ago. I'd been with the firm since 1983. I thought I knew the firm really well when I stepped into the managing partner role. I'd led our corporate M&A practice for 6 years. But when I stepped into the role of managing partner, I did suddenly see the firm from a very different perspective, particularly in terms of the challenges that were affecting us right across the breadth of the firm, and also the increasing importance of the operational side of our business, something that I think many of our partners, and I did to a certain extent, take for granted in the way that it enables us to deliver the services to the clients, but which was fundamentally important and is going through rapid change. It's interesting, every time we do a major hire within the firm, whether it's a partner or somebody coming in on the operational side of the firm, we get a cultural benchmark about our organisation, which the headhunting firms we use do by reference to what messages do we give to the candidates in the interview stage, what do candidates observe about our firm, and they play that back to us. The strongest characteristics, which we're very proud of, is that we come out as a very caring firm. And caring, you think, well, is that what you want the firm to be famous for? Well, what people mean by caring is that we cherish relationships and we cherish partnerships within the firm. And that's something that I've noticed and has always been critical to my engagement with the firm and fundamental part of why I love coming into work every day with the firm. The second characteristic that comes up is that we value highly impact and results, and we value highly capabilities, strong capabilities. Again, great characteristics for a firm to have in depth as part of its culture. The third characteristic is that, common to most law firms, I think, is that we love predictability and we like certainty. And when you look at the dynamics of change in the market facing our clients and facing our law firms, that's a characteristic that presents a challenge. And it was one of the things that I really focused on when I first came into my role and saw all of the data and had the rich data that we have about our culture and characteristics played back to me, and how I could look at taking on the change program that I knew we needed to take on within the firm. What I'd like to do quickly over the next few slides is just focus on what I think are these 6 key drivers of change and how we're responding to them within the firm at the moment. The most important by far is that the client's needs and expectations are rapidly changing. That's the same right across the world. There are some regional differences, but right across the world, clients' needs and expectations are changing. We need to completely revolutionize our economic model, and I'll come on to why I call it the welcome demise of the billable hour. We're seeing both vertical, internal and horizontal pressures from the clients, from our own teams in terms of talent and skills, but also from the disruptors and new entrants into the market. Much of that is being accelerated by the power of technology. And coming back and joining all this up, changing needs and expectations of the talent, the changing skills that we need to have in a law firm, linked with also what we call responsible business, but is basically, in my view, how we continue to maintain our license to operate and how we actually tie that back into clients' needs and expectations. Because this is a huge, huge area that when I talk to clients, they have high expectations of us, but they are also feeling huge challenges around maintaining the balance between investing for long-term sustainable growth, how they live up to their commitments to things like the UN Compact and the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have a huge part to play in supporting them in that, but also making sure that we cultivate an environment within the firm that recognises the importance of that license to operate with all of our stakeholders. So, clients' expectations. I think it is far, far more complex than more for less. People talk about more for less, and I think it's a great phrase that summarises some of this pressure, but it is much, much more complex. We have to, as a firm, we have to understand deeply the impacts that our clients are facing in their own businesses and understand the challenges. We've done some great things. We set up sector groups 8 years way before I came into the role. to get that industry insight, which is absolutely critical, and pivot the way we look at servicing our clients away from our expertise and practice area skills to actually the industry needs and the industry issues. But that is continuing at a pace. And if you listen, you read Ben Heinemann's book, you can see actually that change of role of the in-house counsel within the clients to have to be these guardians of reputation, guardians of risk for the organisation in what is an incredibly complex business environment and is getting more and more complex, whether it's data privacy, whether it's cyber security, whether it's the complexity of the financial markets. Many industries are facing some existential risks. David and I were just talking before we spoke about the impact of fintech, cryptocurrencies, and the new emerging powers in markets and platforms that they're having on the financial services industries, and particularly the bank industries. Some of these are existential issues that the clients are having to grapple with. And we as a law firm need to understand those and help them look at how they can engage and successfully navigate those changes. Rightly, clients are getting much more and expecting almost total transparency into the heart of the law firm and understanding what creates value for them as opposed to delivers cost for them. And we need to engage with that and really have a very close understanding about that. One of the first questions I ask when I meet a general counsel is not how they value the law firms, but how they, within their own organisations, are measured. What are the metrics that the CFO and the CEO place on the performance and contribution of their in-house legal teams? Because unless we can really understand that, we as a law firm cannot really engage and help support them in meeting those benchmarks and objectives. Obviously, there's a huge increase in choice. Disaggregation has been a theme now for a long time. And we need to understand what that means for our business and also how we can work with collaborations and partnerships to make that, build deep, successful, sustainable, trusted relationships, working with both technology companies, with the other providers of legal services that are emerging. So understanding how that plays out to all our clients is absolutely critical. And it's something that we have to make sure is understood and resonates right across our partnership and our firm. So the economic model change, people have been talking about the billable hour dying, yet every pitch, every presentation we're asked to make to win an RFP for a piece of work, the first question we get asked is, what are your billable rates? And what discount are you going to give off your billable rates? I think that dynamic is changing. I was talking to some researchers on the law industry recently who said they estimate, I think in the US market, that about 20% of law firm work is now done on alternative fee arrangements. I think that is a massive underestimation of the percentage. I would say in our business, if we're really talking, and it depends, it's a definitional issue, but you're talking about work where we are not working on a billable hour basis, I think in the transactional areas it's way above 50%. I think it's great because what it does is it changes the way we think about the way we deliver our services. It hasn't changed every partner or every lawyer within the firm yet, but it is driving change, which I think is positive for our clients and positive for our business model. Increases the disciplines that are required in working to alternative fee arrangements, and they can be hugely, hugely successful for both the clients and the law firms. We were one of the first international firms to engage with the Pfizer Law Firm Alliance, which took us right out of our comfort zone onto a fixed fee for delivering an uncertain pool of services to Pfizer on a yearly basis. But it had a number of really interesting safeguards from a law firm's point of view in there, that they valued collaboration with the other members of the Pfizer Law Firm Alliance. They awarded half-yearly and annual bonuses based on adhering to the principles, which went way beyond just service levels, but the core principles of partnership and collaboration in that law firm. And that has been an incredibly successful relationship, which we cherish very, very highly within the firm. And I use that as a great example of how alternative fee arrangements, if we're willing to be brave and embrace them, can really change and strengthen the firm and develop these really deep, long-term, sustainable relationships. I won't linger long on this slide. I just put up there a few of the recent headlines from some of the trade press around the emergence and the threats of firms coming into the market. The big four we do see. Clearly they have a position in the legal market that they want to develop and build. And I've no doubt that with their firepower and their scale, particularly around technology, and also their ability to bring together complementary services, they do present a risk to the legal industry, and particularly in terms of the corporate legal industry. Again, from our perspective, we see that as positive in actually helping us drive and identify how we need to adapt and change in our services, but also how we can also work with many of them. We're great partners with all of the big four firms in many cases. Very often in some of our most important relationships, we're working day in, day out with them in collaboration. And we see that as something that we will continue to develop and invest in. Technology for the industry, again, these are just a few of the changes and the tools that are being developed. Again, I think embracing change and working out how these can impact on our ability. We look at it at Clifford Chance down two levels. I should start by saying one of the first things we did was appoint one of my partners, Bas Boris Visser, as a partner for innovation and business change. Not just technology-driven change, but business change in total, to help us have the confidence, help us have the insights, and to be an internal and external champion for our commitment to change and disruptive change within our business. In terms of technology, we see two pockets of activity. First is how do we transform and make the essential transformational steps to our core business, the business that is currently keeping the lights on. It's making sure we continue to be successful. And we look at doing that through an evolutionary process. We've worked with, obviously, tools that have been around like the e-discovery tools for a long time, but increasingly with AI tools, and I'll mention those in a minute. The second area we look on is how do we look at developing new services and new opportunities to deliver creative solutions for our clients that are empowered by technology. That needs a bit more foresight. It needs to think about what is the firm going to look like? What's Clifford Chance going to look like in 10 years' time? What are the clients going to want Clifford Chance to look like, more importantly, in 10 years' time? And how do we take the risks and the gambles to move forward with that objective in mind? In order to embrace that change, we absolutely need to sort of respond to what we're hearing from clients. Clients have high expectations about how we're going to utilize technology. And many of our clients are on a journey together with those clients to think about not just how technology impacts on the way we work and the services that we can provide, but also how do we use technology in an integrated partnership with those clients. And Bas Boris, one of his key roles is actually to be spending time with clients, spending time with the legal operating officers within our clients' businesses, an emerging and really important new sort of feature, or relatively new feature. And Clock is a great example of just how that can grow into a mutual organisation to support that change, but spending a huge amount of time with the clients to think about how we can best deploy technological solutions alongside our core strengths and looking at the new solutions that clients need into the future. We continually scan the market. We just touch on one area, the City Tech for Integrity program. This is a great example of where, around our fintech experience, but also looking at what is happening to the financial services market, we partnered with clients Citi and MasterCard and a number of other client organisations to support a program to promote a number of tech startups who were looking at developing solutions for supporting integrity in financial services. That was a program that not only gave us insight into what's happening in the fintech market, enabled us to support with free legal services a number of those six startup organisations, but also enabled us to engage with clients and see how they're looking at the disruptive impact of technology within that business. That enables us to bring that learning back into our business and deploy it in that way. I mentioned AI. We partnered with Kira, the AI software. We chose Kira because it enables us to combine our talents and expertise to train the technology solution around AI technology in terms of scaling document reviews in a way that we've not been able to scale document reviews and due diligence exercises in the past. We've created CC Draft, which was inspired by Bas Boris's discussions with clients. This is an automated document production software and document management tool, which answered some of the major challenges that many of our clients had around how do they respond to the regulatory challenges for more transparency and control and consistency in some of their internal contracting processes, and how do they manage those in a more cost-effective way. We took away those issues, and for clients like PGGM and a number of the major banks, we've developed an automated contract management tool and contract production tool, which they can use in-house. They can take it in-house entirely, so it can just be a straightforward licensing arrangement with Clifford Chance, an area we've not been in before, or it can be something where it's complementary to the other services that we're providing to those clients. But it was developed to answer a specific client challenge and problem driven by regulatory change and a need to become more efficient and consistent in their internal processes. And Neota Logic, who are another software business, their programs, algorithms are around decision tree solutions. And we partnered with Neota Logic, again, on specific projects to respond to clients' needs. So in Europe, MiFID II, the directive on the market in financial instruments, has created a massive challenge for our clients, basically having to review and redocument a huge amount of their client contractual arrangements. Neota Logic's tool, which has been designed using their software with our experience and capabilities to provide an automated solution for a large part of the analysis and some of the repapering, but then also allowing the really complex areas of work to flow to us or to the in-house teams so they can hit the regulatory deadline to complete this work in the early part of 2018. Now we see huge opportunities to deploy technologies such as the Neota Logic technology, to combine it with our capabilities and our experiences to design solutions for particular client problems. And our ambition is obviously to look ahead, to anticipate where those challenges and issues are coming, so we can be ahead of the curve in developing the solutions with the clients. The theme across a lot of this is it's around collaboration. We don't want Clifford Chance to be a technology company. We don't think that's where our core strength lies. But we do recognise that technology has to be an integrated part of the solutions that we're delivering to our clients. I just want to take a couple of minutes on talent and skills. You're probably all fairly familiar with these. Are the UK statistics, worrying statistics. Both the lines show high-performing, academically high-performing students and their desire to pursue careers in the law. And the decline is worrying. You've probably all seen Heidi and others have talked about this. David, I know, has talked about this on many occasions. The challenge to attract talent into legal firms at the moment is getting harder and harder. And the models that we've had historically from the golden era of partnerships and the tournament to partnership that was operated in many firms needs to change, and indeed is changing. We see, and we don't know exactly how it's going to be structured, but we see a huge change in the coming years from what is roughly this. Some change, evolution, some automation by technology, some outsourcing. I mean, we were one of the first firms to set up an offshore capability in India, where we've got 70 very talented consultants working as part of an integrated team within the firm. We do use some flexible resourcing. We use alumni who want to pursue alternative career opportunities within this model. But I think a lot of firms, and including ours, are struggling with how you evolve from that model to the model for the future. I think the key characteristics of what I see are going to be necessary for a successful firm in the future is you're going to have a lower ratio of lawyers to partners. You're going to have a different track to an alternative tracks for promotion, and partnership may not be the Holy Grail, and is not the Holy Grail for many, many people joining our firm today. We're going to be using more agile and flexible resource to ensure that we can access the strongest pool of talent. And we're going to be bringing in different skills. So we're already bringing in a lot more transaction, project and resource management skills into our business. There are a lot of things that historically have been done by partners that actually partners should not be doing. It's not where their core strength lies. They're fantastic lawyers. They're great relationship partners. But some of the things that they've been asked to do over the years and have been layered on top of those skills is not their best, the best use of their time. And we see much greater use of tech skills, including data analytics. Now we are starting to make that move. As I say, I don't know where it's going to end up, but I do see that that's where we're heading. And what that triangle actually looks like will certainly not look like that, I'm sure of that, but it will evolve towards that sort of shape as we go forward. I mentioned responsible business because this also links with our ability to attract and retain the very best people into the firm. It's undoubtedly one of, if not the number one, it's certainly one of the top 3 issues of importance for lawyers and others joining the firm. What is our commitment to our wider stakeholder community, and how are we supporting our clients in meeting their obligations to be responsible businesses and seek not the best financial outcome, but the right outcomes for their businesses. We still have some huge challenges in the industry. We've made some good progress in terms of gender diversity. We've made very good progress in terms through our ARCUS network, which is our LGBT network. It's not consistent across the whole globe. We have to tread carefully around some regulatory issues, but we see it as absolutely imperative that we were pushing policymakers in some of the most challenging challenging jurisdictions to promote equality and inclusivity of the LGBT colleagues. We have important steps to take forward in terms of diversity from an ethnicity point of view in some jurisdictions. Continental Europe is a real challenge. The US continues to be a challenge. It's not something in which the solution lies wholly in our hands. It's a complex issue, improving social mobility, including access to education, and giving people opportunities to see the scope to work within a firm like ours. And if they're in a firm like ours, helping them to see how they can participate and make an impact in this responsible business agenda. So critically important right across every aspect of our responsible business strategy. So just in summary, and then I'll open it up for questions. One of the things we look at is to say, what do we want the firm to look like in the future? What do we want Clifford Chance to be famous for? Relentless, single-minded focus on our clients is absolutely critical. And that's easy to say. It's harder to actually deliver. We want to be brave and bold in creating solutions for the most complex and challenging issues that are facing our clients. We need to understand the value rather than the cost equation in the services that we're providing. We believe passionately that this will be built on open and trusted collaborations and partnerships. We're not going to do all this our own. That's partnerships with our clients, it's partnerships with other service providers, and as I mentioned, technology providers. We can never stand still, so we have to be continually evolving. It's a process of evolution as I see it. Evolution means you have to be prepared to fail and take steps, and that's not great. When I come back to that characteristic about certainty and predictability that's important to a lot of people in our business, one of my key objectives has been to encourage experimentation and a recognition that failure is not a problem within Clifford Chance. It's clearly a problem if you fail on giving some strategic, critical advice to a client, don't get me wrong. But actually experimenting, trying things out is to be encouraged within our organisation. And that, to me, is about empowering everybody within our organisation to make that contribution. As long as we're doing it with a relentless focus on what the impact and benefit is going to be for our clients. Diversity and responsible business are the final two elements. I think if we can continue to focus on those, that's where we see the shape of Clifford Chance enabling us to continue to be successful and continue to be relevant and having that license to operate with all our stakeholders, including our employees, our clients, and the wider communities in which we're working. At the heart of it all is collaboration and effective collaboration across the organisation. So I'll pause there. I've covered a lot of ground in a very short space of time. Very happy to dive into detail on any of the areas I've covered.
So the floor is open. It's a wonderful opportunity. Yes, please.
So you've given us a broad and deep sense of change that's required, and it is some areas it's happened, but you lawyers are often conservative and resistant to change. And I want to invite you to flesh out a little bit the cultural mechanisms that you are using to urge change along. Could you perhaps tell us a story or two where you encountered change and you had to develop and implement a strategy to push past that?
Yeah, I think when I first came into the role, I sensed there was a huge resistance to change. The first thing, as did my leadership group, I think we certainly felt the desire for clients to see us change, but that wasn't really translating into actually action across the business. So the first thing we did was actually we brought in quite a lot of people from outside and from other industries to talk about how their industries were facing this challenge of change and disruption. In many cases, those were clients, most powerful advocates, to bring that voice of the client into the organisation and make sure that the partners and the lawyers and the operational side of our business really hear about that. So we embarked on a program where we brought a lot of outside speakers into the firm to really get that message across. What I wanted to do was not sort of create the impression we were on a burning platform, but definitely that the platform was smouldering and we needed to act quickly around that. The second thing we did was actually look at empowering our operational teams. These are people, highly skilled people. When I came into the organisation, my concern was that we had some very, very talented people in our IT, in our client development, in our finance teams, but they were working in their individual silos. The other thing was that they felt that their client was the partnership. And I did two things. One was I made it very clear to everybody on the operational side that their client was the clients outside, and that the way I saw success was the impact that they were having in the client experience. And we take a lot of time to get feedback and measure the impression that the clients have of dealing with us in every aspect of the business. And the one area that I sort of saw come up time and time again was around our billing processes. You know, those were the friction points, not the quantum of the bill, but just our inability to deliver transparency and openness and create an impression that actually we were sort of closed and defensive about our fees. And a lot of the time that was because our systems weren't aligned with what the clients were wanting. So I said to the team, you've got to. I want you to work as one team, focused on the clients, break down the silos and barriers. Because in many cases, if you just take billing, you know, how we adapt and to an e-billing process that a client wants us to engage with through one of the many third-party providers, it requires, you know, client relationship management, it requires the finance team to engage, it requires our systems and technologies to align with those processes, and it requires an engagement with the e-billing providers as well. And I think, you know, one of the things I noticed was we were tending to focus in this is a technology issue or this is a finance issue. So that was a very big change, and I brought in a new, our global COO who led some of the early changes like the offshoring was retiring. She told me she was going to retire, so when we had the opportunity to go out into the market and find somebody with a strategy background, Carolyn Firstbrook, who came in and has helped lead that change. And that the skills and talents within our operational team are phenomenal, and they are driving a lot of the change, and actually providing the acceleration for the partners to change. We've made some missteps. I think you know, in our offshoring process, we started that up. There was a lot of enthusiasm, but we weren't clear in creating it as a centre of excellence, for example, for some areas of work that they were doing. So it tended to be more sporadic, unstructured use of the great capabilities we had out there. But we turned that round and have created this as a centre for excellence where, you know, there is an absolutely compelling proposition. And we built the evidence around that to sort of say to partners, this task, we brought some of the consultants over to the UK, helped train them, they get to know the teams, and we can then present something that says this can be done faster, at a lower cost, and a higher quality in some cases through the structures that we put around that. Bringing together the data is where you need to bring together the data. to build the case is absolutely critical, as well as in convincing some partners and lawyers to understand that. But the other big issue for us, and where we're investing heavily at the moment, is actually to bring on board the project management and skills to enable us to implement some of the changes. Because what we're asking partners and lawyers to do is change when they're incredibly busy and they're under huge pressure from the clients to actually deliver the service on incredibly important mandates for those clients. And it's asking people to adapt and modify and evolve their processes when they're doing that is very difficult. So actually bringing in people with real skills around change management programs is also an area where we have invested, but I think we'll continue to invest more going forward.
Yes, please, here.
Yeah, so do you have any recommendations for us students on what we can do while we're in law school to prepare ourselves for the new terrain?
Well, I would encourage you to engage as much as you can with clients and client organisations to understand the pressure that they're under. I'd look at study how other industries have responded and adapted to disruption and change, and I mean we do that all the time. And I think understanding that and then seeing how you apply that into the legal industry is really, really critical, because the legal industry needs to learn and gain from the experiences that other industries have suffered. We, I think, are behind as an industry in comparison with many other industries, both professional services industries and others. And partly we're behind because of some of the regulatory structures which have, in some ways, provided a defence to change, but other industries have had to evolve. So I think, looking at that, and also, keeping on top of the technology developments and the innovations that are coming right across the board, because you can look at something like LegalZoom, which one of my clients is a major investor in. What they're doing within the sort of the individual legal hemisphere will evolve in some ways, not necessarily with LegalZoom, but others will look and apply some of those technologies to the big law as well. So I think understanding what is happening, what's capable, thinking what's going forward, I think those are the three things I would say: clients, technology landscape, and what's happening in other industries.
And coming to lectures like this, we actually have a client in the room, Fred.
Thanks, David. Fred Eden from Air Canada in Montreal, and thanks for the talk. A lot of great things that we'd like to hear our outside providers say, and then we've worked with some of your colleagues. Your slides about the Big Four, and I know this was one of David's interests for some time as well, were intriguing. What kinds of services have you seen them start to offer that you would have otherwise considered to be in the legal sphere that are sort of competitive with your offering? And what is it that you're seeing that appeals about that?
I think where I've seen it, and where I think they've invested heavily, is into areas like HR, and where there is a strong overlap between compliance and the legal areas. So absolutely compliance within financial services. There are some areas where there is a scale needed around some of those operations. And it blends with some legal requirements. So those are the sorts of areas where I think they have been focusing naturally, I think, to date. I've no doubt they've got ambitions to target other areas. And in some jurisdictions, I think, I'll probably get this wrong, but I think EY are the largest law firm in France by some margin. And they've been doing, for years, many, many years, they've been doing corporate reorganisations and structurings and other areas of legal services within that market. So I think, I think they're they will continue to look at where there is a compelling proposition to put to clients around those services. And they are bringing together, other areas. They're investing heavily into cyber. They're investing, continuing to invest heavily in compliance programs, cultural programs for clients, where there is clearly blurred lines between law, regulation, and other areas of business.
So just a small plug, Nicholas over here and I have just one of your little things down in the corner on the American Lawyer is a piece that we just published together based on the research that we've been doing on the center, on the Big Four. We have a big project on that, as well as work that the American Lawyer is doing. And I think the conclusion is you better watch this space, because they're going to be extremely formidable competitors. And those wonderful things you had there about your alliances with technology companies, they are massively investing in legal tech in particular, and technology in general, and the integration of technology, law, and business. So it's a fascinating thing, and I urge you to read our work. Yeah, good pick.
So you mentioned a moment ago that there are regulatory structures that inhibit some of the solutions we're talking about. So I'm wondering if you could expand on that a little bit, and also whether we can change legislation in the UK or maybe
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at some of the conflict rules and also the regulation and licensing of legal advice in jurisdictions, that has typically created some controls over new entrants into markets. Obviously, in the UK, that we saw a significant element of deregulation with the alternative service models that were allowed through by the SRA some years ago now. There's still issues like conflicts, which I think are areas which I think need to be maintained, and regulatory arrangements need to be maintained in those areas, but which do provide a sort of natural barrier. Clients, particularly in the corporate space, want to know that they're getting independence in terms of their advice, and I think that's going back to the Big Four. That potentially is a barrier to them moving into some of the very high end of legal services, because there is there are areas where clients want to feel they've got very independent legal advice separate from some of the other services, and indeed that may be one may see a regulatory shift back the other way to ensure that there are clients are having that independence of advice, which provides robust governance structures within their organisations. So you can see this sort of ebbing and flowing a little bit, I think, as we move forward, and it may vary in different areas of the law as well.
Any thought about taking any external capital to fuel some of those projects that you're doing?
It's interesting. I mean, that opens up a much bigger issue. The simple answer is no, not at the moment. But what I do think is, for the industry, that is a really critical issue. I mean, we're fortunate with our scale that we actually can invest significant amounts of money in technology solutions and exploring options around technology developments. Many law firms just don't have that ability. I think one of the things that the industry is crying out for is actually some platform solutions to provide enable the law firms to develop that. And, maybe Microsoft and others I know are probably all looking at this as a potential. We may not be the biggest industry for them to focus on first, but undoubtedly there's going to be a space there, I think, for somebody to provide some platform solutions that allow firms and clients to connect into, to leverage the capabilities of technology. But in terms of capital, I mean, I think it's a really fascinating topic, whether the model of paying out partners and compensation I think the answer is, whilst the competitive landscape remains, particularly in big law, then we have to focus on the ability to retain our talent. But it's critical we strike the right balance with investment, and that's something we've been very focused on, and taking our partners on that journey so they understand that there's a trade-off between between some of these decisions that we make.
Yeah, Nicholas?
I'm curious, one of the sort of big stories in the legal market over the last 10 or 15 years has been sort of the invasion of the UK market by US firms. I'm curious what it's like managing all of this along with that, right? How has that been? Where have been these struggles for the Magic Circle?
I think, it's like any competition in the market. It does have a disruptive element. We've had to look and make changes to our partner compensation model to adapt to some of those forces, not just in the UK market, but in Asia as well, and other markets. And obviously we're growing and competing in this market as well, and we have to come into this market and look at a disruptor strategy to a very mature and developed market in the US that we've been in for the last sort of 30 years. It has changed some of the dynamics. It's, as I say, it's driven us to look at our compensation model and make sure we are adapting to that. I think where we've seen different firms have taken different approaches to their expansion. US firms, headquartered firms, coming into the other markets, including the UK. In some cases, it's been very, very focused on areas of business and clients. And very targeted, and that has a certain scale to it, an impact. And in some cases, you look at what's happened in that area, and it's changed dramatically. I'm a private equity lawyer, M&A lawyer, but specialised in private equity. When I look at the landscape of the private equity market in London now, it's very, very different than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Yes, we're still one of the leading firms, so Freshfields and Linklaters, but other firms that were strong and the mid-market firms are not as present and strong in that space as they were 10 years ago. And that's largely because private equity has been one of the areas that has translated across, and the US firms have targeted. Other firms have gone for a more sort of broader base of capability. That again has tended to impact some of the mid-market firms in the London more than it has the so-called Magic Circle. I don't like that phrase. I certainly don't use it in the US. Shouldn't use it here.
We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you do. I'm going to persuade you not to use that.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm curious about the Brexit effect on private equity in the London market, in a sense that as a global firm, do you really feel that your private equity clients, kind of are interested in shifting to other jurisdictions, and do you think there is a switch from the London market to other jurisdictions, especially as far as we're talking about European market? And organizationally, as a global firm, what's your response to that?
Yeah. Absolutely. When I joined and I qualified into it was then the venture capital group, we were doing £40,000 investments for what was Citicorp Venture Capital, which had just established in the UK, now CVC partners with billions under management. And that market evolved. It very quickly evolved into a pan-European market, and it's very quickly evolved into a global market, with Asia-Pac being a region that a lot of our clients are active in. At the moment, there's another change that's been going on since the global financial crisis, which is these investors are actually now becoming increasingly important distributors of capital and deployers of capital around the globe in different asset classes. So as you look at Carlyle now, I forget how many funds Carlyle has under management, but they cover every asset class and every geography on a global basis. And many of our clients in that space are going on that journey. what we've always done is approach our private equity client base on a global basis. I mean, we were lucky that it grew and evolved as they grew and evolved their businesses. And so we operate the relationships on a global basis, and we operate our global private equity practice on a global basis. And we now operate a broader global approach to financial investors in the broader sense. So, if you look at a Blackstone, it's real estate, it's debt, it's private equity, it's special opportunities. I probably could go on for longer with the list. It's infrastructure, and we work with those clients by looking right across their asset base, and they've become different organisations as they've grown and diverse, which presents different challenges in how you maintain the relationship. They're different decision makers. When I started with some of my clients, you knew there were two people in the organisation who chose which lawyers to use. Now you're probably dealing with multiple decision makers in those organisations, and they don't yet look like the big financial services companies, the big banks, the global investment banks, but they're definitely moving along that track. And I don't think they'll get to that stage because they're operating very, very different models, obviously. But you do see that evolution, and that requires you to constantly change your relationship model. And the other big issue with those clients, which is with every client, is succession, because they're going through generational changes as well, and the people you've built the relationships with and have been the decision makers starting to relinquish some of their controls and decision-making authorities, and they're hiring in laterally as well from other organisations. So suddenly you find a relationship that's been incredibly strong and focused and loyal. Suddenly find you've got to adapt to new people coming into the relationship. So it is evolving, and it's changing quite dramatically, but it's something that's been going on with those clients since I first qualified in '85.
Well, I think we'll have to wait. I think it was a very Theresa May-like answer on the Brexit part of your question.
Sorry, I skipped that. Yeah.
I would say.
So I missed that. So I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's all right,
I'm happy
but
to do
that's
that.
why you have to come back. I think everybody who was here learned enormously about how you are changing and adapting this important institution. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.